So this is a walkthrough of A.E. Housman's To an Athlete Dying Young. It's probably his most famous poem. It comes from a collection called The Shropshire Lad, which has a lot of poems in similar vein to this. And if you flip through your book, you'll see another one called Shot So Quick, So Clean an Ending, which is another poem about someone who's dying young. And it seems to have been an interest of Housman's. Housman was a classical scholar, so he amended texts in Latin, and for a certain narrow kind of poem, I think he's sound-wise at least, he is one of the greatest minor poets of his century. So let's listen to this poem, and then we'll take a real quick look. We'll take a spin through it. The time you won your town the race, we chaired you through the marketplace. Man and boy stood cheering by, and home we brought you shoulder high. Today the road all runners come, shoulder high we bring you home, and set you at your threshold down, townsman of a stiller town. Smart lad to slip betimes away from fields where glory does not stay, and early though the laurel grows, it withers quicker than the rose. Eyes the shady night has shut cannot see the record cut, and silence sounds no worse than cheers after earth has stopped the ears. Now you will not swell the rout of lads that wore their honors out, runners whom renown outran, and the name died before the man. So set before its echoes fade the fleet foot on the sill of shade, and hold to the low lintel up the still defended challenge cup, and round that early laureled head will flock to gaze the strengthless dead, and find unwithered on its curls the garland briefer than a girl's. So let's take a look. First of all, you'll notice that this is a metrical poem. And if you want to take a minute here, you can just, I can't mark it on the screen, but you can mark it in your book. We've got, actually maybe I can mark it. Let's see. I think I can draw on this. The time you won your town the race. Oh, that's pretty inelegant. But I've marked the stresses there. So the next thing we would do is mark our unstressed syllables. Okay. Then we're going to chop those up into metrical feet very badly here. And that will, then we identify them. The unstressed and stressed, that's going to be called an iamb. So this is an iambic, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. So it's iambic tetrameter. There's 4. Okay. So we've got a metrical poem. It's very regular. It's going to be rhymed pretty predictably throughout. So it's going to be rhymed in couplets: race, place, buy, high, come home, downtown. By the way, like come and home, in my accent, those are inexact rhymes. But I don't know about Housman's accent. He's definitely he's an educated Briton of the previous century, and we can't necessarily make assumptions. So To an Athlete Dying Young, that pretty much gives us our frame, our narrative frame. So it's going to be using a device that's called apostrophe. In apostrophe, you're speaking to someone or thing that either isn't present or isn't capable of responding. So if I go, oh, death, and I'm talking to death, I don't expect death to answer me. Likewise, this is written as, this is a poem of praise at someone's death. So it's an elegy. So this would be an elegiac poem. And we don't expect dead people to answer. So although we're doing the you, it is, again, apostrophe. So We're making parallels in this poem. The time you won your town the race, we chaired you through the marketplace. And if you've ever seen, well, we still have these little rituals of athletic victory when people win something. In this time, that would be putting him up on the shoulders of the crowd and walking him through the marketplace. So it's a moment of triumph. Man and boy stood cheering by. And home we brought you shoulder high. So they're carrying him. Today the road all runners come. Shoulder high we bring you home. And set you at your threshold down, townsmen of a stiller town. So we've got up here, we have got the victory, and here we've got a parallel. How are they bringing him shoulder high? And what kind of road do all runners come down? So I think we're working with a metaphorical kind of road here. And it's really common to say, well, life's a journey, life's a road. Those metaphors are so old that we don't even really think about them. And so here's the end of the race, which will be the graveyard. And shoulder high, now these are pallbearers instead of people celebrating his victory. Now, he's going to have a pretty interesting view of death here, in that he's telling the guy how smart he was to get out while he was young. And as a matter of fact, from fields where glory doesn't stay, the whole issue is the kid's famous, and if he grows up, his fame would go. A laurel, by the way, is just going to be a wreath that is made out of bay leaves, and that will be or laurel leaves, and those will be symbols of a triumph. So in the old days, in the Olympics, when they were actually held in ancient Greece, you wouldn't get a gold medal. That would be kind of tacky. So what you would get instead is a laurel wreath. So if you're the best poet or if you're the best athlete, that's the symbol of that fame, right? And Housman was a classical scholar, and in Greek and Roman society, reputation was kind of everything. Fame was kind of everything. So maybe his attitude here is more easy to understand as like part of what he studies. So early though the laurel grows, it withers quicker than the rose. So even though you can be famous when you're young, the fame doesn't stay. Eyes the shady night has shut, cannot see the record cut, and silence sounds no worse than cheers after earth has stopped the ears. So the idea that you'll never have to hear that somebody else has beaten your record, this kind of thing. Again, we've got this idea of running, right? Runners who renown outran. So people who, lads that wore their honors out. So people who've lived too long and aren't famous anymore. So set before its echoes fade, the fleet foot on the sill of shade. And that's a very nice line. Notice that he's using a lot of alliteration here. And also notice that if you look at just the word choice in this, all of the words are simple. All of them sound good. He's one of the most euphonious poets in the language. It's very rare that he has a line that doesn't sound great. And he does this by really limiting the kinds of words that he uses. The sill of shade. So it's as if he's stepping down into the tomb. And hold to the low lintel up the still defended challenge cup. So a challenge cup again is a kind of a trophy, right? And round that early laureled head will flock to gaze the strengthless dead. So this is a picture from things like Virgil's Aeneid. The idea is that when heroes descend into the underworld, and this is the Roman underworld, you will find that well, it's not like heaven and it's not really like hell, just that the dead don't have any strength. They're just kind of pathetic, shuffling things, and that in some Roman or Greek poems you'll have them hurrying around the living person who comes down into the underworld. And here's that thing. They'll find unwithered on its curls the garland briefer than a girl's. So again, the idea of the garland, which is another way of talking about the laurel, right? That crown of glory that you wear. The garland briefer than a girl's. Now, on the one hand, the kind of garland that girls wear in their hair is actually bigger than the kind of garland you would get in triumph. So that's literal, but also briefer as in shorter, but also briefer as in what? Athletic fame doesn't last as long as maybe beauty. So we've got those ideas put together. So Housman, I kind of recommend that you go and poke around his biography. You'll find some interesting things. And again, for this kind of poem, he's one of the best that has ever been.